it is wild to think of Asians as a monolithic group.
There's so much diversity within this silly little kind of category.
Yes.
But on the other hand, it's like if I'm asked to tick a box, what am I going to do?
That is the box.
Describe me, yeah.
Honestly, the haters can hate. Just let the creators create and let the creator be judged. I mean, too many mistakes to be grudging. Besides, all of us lost without love. Cause maybe some never get woke, or tired of staying awake, or party all night then distraught at the state of the day.
Hi everyone, I'm Stacey Lee Kong, and this is Friday Talks Not Bad for Some Immigrants, a video series about the immigrant experience and what that really means. And I'm so excited because I'm here with my friend Hannah Sung, a journalist and the co-founder of the award-winning podcast production company Media Girlfriends, for a conversation about K-pop and fandom and culture. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thanks for inviting me. I'm so happy to be here.
Easy question, how did you discover BTS?
YouTube, obviously. I mean, BTS is very much a digital phenomenon, you know?
Yes.
So in the depths of 2020 despair, I was on YouTube and I guess I was looking up some Korean pop culture in general, like probably North American Korean pop culture, but the algorithm fed BTS to me.
Yes.
And I was interested in looking up the MTV VMAs that year because everything was happening for the first time, like in COVID era.
Yes.
And I thought, how do you do an award show in this time? You know, physically distanced, et cetera. And I saw their performance of Dynamite and I just immediately clicked rewatch. And then I had to watch it many times. I was like, I'd heard of them before, but something about that moment really captured my attention. Something about how exceptional they are at what they do. And it's actually not just them, but I was really fascinated by the green screen and technical direction of what was happening because it was so good.
Right.
I don't know if you remember, but during COVID, a lot of shows were looking janky because people
I do remember, extremely janky.
People were just trying their best, and it was basically like making a broadcast out of a Zoom call.
Often it looked like a Zoom call, and this did not look like a Zoom call.
Oh, this was like they'd been preparing.
Yes.
The pandemic was their moment because everything they do is so, I don't want to say digital first, that sounds so dumb, but like they had already been, I mean, it didn't look like it was left up to chance that they were doing.
It was very intentional.
Yeah, it's like they'd been training for the Olympics, and then the Olympics just kind of fell in their lap, being the pandemic and having to do everything. They already had all of their internal production depth, and they were just amazing. And so I was like, who are these guys? And then the big joke for BTS fans is that you start by just trying to learn their names.
There are
seven
a lot of them.
A lot. Yeah.
Western boy bands tend to only have 5 members, sometimes 4. It's a little bit easier.
And they're all named Donnie, so it's okay.
They're all named Donnie, so it's fine.
Yeah, there's 7 of them, and like Wu-Tang, they also have multiple names per person.
Thing. Like, how am I? For the longest time, I was like, what nickname belongs to which guy? How many nicknames do you have?
And then they each also have a cartoon character. Like
I did not actually know that.
Yeah, like a little kind of representation. I haven't memorized those. There's only so far I can go.
So was the cultural piece of it, like the fact that you are Korean and they're Korean, was that part of your attraction at the beginning, or did that come later?
Oh, absolutely. It was a big part of it. I've always been really interested in learning about anything Korean, you know, but being born and raised in Canada, sometimes it felt very distant, right?
Right.
And also, I was born in the 70s, raised in the 80s and 90s. It's just not the same today as it was then.
Yes.
So much more is available, so much more is accessible through, you know, AI translations that are instantaneous.
Right.
And also like Netflix and streamers.
There's just more.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so I've always had this hunger to learn, but now there's just such an abundance. It doesn't mean that when I look at Korean pop culture that I feel, I still have very much my own experience of being diasporic, Korean, North American, Canadian. You know, I'm probably Canadian first, right? But yeah, it's like being a kid in a candy shop. It's fun.
Just so much.
Yeah.
Okay, so walk me through a little bit, though, how BTS became that entry point for you? Because I think it's so interesting that you had this hunger, because it's not just that there's more, like there's been more. What is it about BTS that has sort of taken you on this journey?
The community.
Yeah.
So BTS is famous for having their army, right? That's what you call their fans.
Yes.
Army is powerful. And Army likes to create their own content.
Yes. Army is a force.
Army is a force. And people study Army for good reason. You know, academics study it.
Yeah.
Like political strategists use K-pop strategies for, you know, getting the youth vote out, et cetera. So it's really about my fascination first with the band, because they're so great at what they do. But then their fans and understanding what their fans are capable of collectively when they organize, like knowing that they can organize across the world, but digitally, connecting over the internet. Like we were talking earlier about how there's so much about our era right now that disconnects us, even though there are so many ways to communicate.
The functional kind of outcome is disconnection.
Absolutely.
And polarization.
Yes. Disconnection, polarization. This is the negative downside of like the era that we're living in. But BTS Army was showing me some really incredible, powerful elements of what you can do. So, of course, Army's not perfect because Army is human. Army is also wielding a type of power that I think is, there's no roadmap for it. It's being made up as we go.
Yeah.
And so that's what's fascinating about it. But, you know, at first, I loved the band. Then I was fascinated by the fans. And the fan content also really kind of drove me deeper into what was happening with BTS. If it was just BTS on this one-way street of like music videos when we were young, if I was just watching their music videos,
if you were just consuming.
Yeah, it would not be the same relationship or understanding to Korean culture.
Yeah.
Because there are people who basically translate the cultural elements for us in their YouTube channels, you know? I've watched a ton of those videos and I appreciate those people so much. Like Korean rap, I can't understand what they're rapping about. BTS, the rappers, there's like a rap line, 3 of them. They're talking too fast for me.
Yeah.
And my vocabulary is not very large.
Yeah.
And also all the double entendres, all the depth of meaning, the subtext.
That's it.
People translate it for us online, and I live for that, so.
It's like Genius, the site.
Yeah.
Specifically, though, for this sort of subculture.
Yeah, and it's limitless also.
Yes.
There's tons of it.
Tell me, how are you, so is it just through pop culture, or are you extending some of that learning about Korean culture and about your heritage to like, are you talking to your family more? Are you like reading more? Are you learning more of the language? Like how is it going into other parts of your life, or is it?
Okay, so I'll answer each one of those in order.
My breaking all the rules of journalism by asking 7 questions at once. I'm just very excited, Hannah.
I get it, it's okay. Am I talking to my family more? So my parents don't really, they're not necessarily forthcoming with a million stories about their childhood or their youth. But I think when I was younger, that really bothered me, and it doesn't anymore. I feel like when you just share space and time together, stories come out on their own, in their own time.
Yes.
So that's the way I feel about that now, and little stories have come out, and it's really gratifying. When my dad, who is not a very talkative person, that's just his nature, when he starts telling a story about his childhood, it's like I freeze. It's like if you're bird watching or something that you don't want anything to break the spell. You're kind of like and I try and like just drink it all in. I'm like and then try and remember all the details. And am I reading more? Oh my gosh, yeah. I'm reading so much, and it is so gratifying and fulfilling. I'm reading fiction and nonfiction. I read Crying in H Mart, which was really nice. It made me cry so much. I read this book by Lisa C. about Haenyeo, which I'm obsessed with these women who are sea divers in Jeju. I read an older book called The Birth of Korean Cool, which was just by Yoonhee Hong, and she is funny. So this is a nonfiction book, but it has so much like crackle and voice in it, and facts too, so I love it. And then the last part was language. Oh my gosh, okay, so like the trauma of Korean school from when I was a kid, no, it wasn't that bad. I I really want to re-expand my ability to speak Korean because it was my first language in the home before I went to kindergarten.
Yes.
And then I lost so much of it. I know it's like buried in my brain because when I go to Korea, if I'm talking to other Korean family members, my vocabulary expands again.
Yeah.
But right now it's abysmal and I don't practice it really because even in the home with my parents, there's not a lot of like, they speak to me in Korean, I speak back in English. I think it's a very common way that families talk. And I was mentioning this to some Korean people from Korea and they couldn't understand it. And I felt like a bit of judgment from them. And they're like, well, why don't you just speak it? And I don't know, but there are so many things that when forced to explain them logically are not really logical maybe, but it's the way that we relate to each other and the way that we learn to survive when we were younger and the way that, this is just the way mixed up families, culturally mixed up families can be. And it's not wrong, So yeah, I want to learn more Korean. I definitely do. I want to practice it basically.
I feel like language is also it's so fraught with emotion because the diasporic experience of language, and like my first language is English. We speak English in Trinidad, but talking to other friends whose first language was not English or just like there are multiple languages spoken in their home, there's all of this judgment about whether you can speak the language. And it's so interesting to me because it really like betrays a lack of understanding about what it means to be part of the diasporic community versus being part of the like homeland community. Like it's just not the same experience. And we're surrounded by English.
Yeah.
So like you have to try really hard. And you have to try really hard, I think, to learn your language or to maintain your language. And also it betrays this like lack of understanding about the reality of what our lives are like. Like a lot of times our parents don't have time or feel like it's actually better for us and sets us up for success to not speak with an accent or to not, like there's all this stuff. There should not be judgment. There's all this stuff.
I think people who don't live the kind of immigrant kid childhood and then into adulthood don't understand the pressures that sometimes we can't even articulate to ourselves.
Yes.
So the pressure to assimilate is maybe never even explicitly said, but it is always there in every little action, in every little decision, and you're always kind of basically pushed towards assimilation and assimilating. The rewards that get dangled in front of you are like career success or social, richness of like social peer groups. Like I've been thinking a lot lately about trying to reverse that assimilation process. I don't think there's such a thing as reversing it, but being aware of it. You know how like, if you're in a yoga class or something and then you have to become aware of your breathing. Well, you breathe all the time, but all of a sudden now you have to do it consciously and be aware. It's a little bit like that because being asked or nudged to assimilate all the time, you don't notice that you're doing it until you kind of force yourself to reconsider.
Yeah.
And it's a privilege to even do that, right? To even be in a space like that. But yeah, you can't win. So if someone's gonna judge you for the way that you speak, or if you speak too white,
Yes.
it's just not fair, actually. We just speak the way that we do. We're just getting by. We're just trying to communicate.
We're just trying.
Yes.
But like what you were saying about not understanding or not realizing all of the times that we are encouraged to assimilate super resonates with me because I feel like I've always like loved my culture. It has always been important to me, but it hasn't been at the forefront of my work. It hasn't been at the forefront of my purpose. Like it has taken me time to get there. And I think a lot of that has to do with this very powerful but super subtle pressure to succeed and be socially successful and be, good at living this life. And that is also requiring us to assimilate, or it felt like requiring me to assimilate.
Mm-hmm. And also I feel like our specific cultural connections and identity get kind of obliterated when we talk about race or like the idea of what our racial identity is.
Yeah.
Like, racial identity is often about lumping people together in ways that don't necessarily make sense to us as people, individual people. So like an essay that I read a few years ago on the Asian American experience in the New York Times Magazine by J. Caspian Kang. The one
I know
thing
the
that
one.
you know it, the one thing I took away from it, it was so big for me at the time, was just how the Asian American identity is really just a pushback against racism. Like there is a racist concept, right? There's a whole like historical concept and racist immigration policies that designed stereotypes about Asian people. And it's like, what unites Asian Americans beyond that racism? Like, you may not speak the same language or eat the same food, or like, it's a little bit ridiculous to say Asian Americans when Asia represents so much
huge,
of
like,
the world, so
and
many
like
countries.
a very diverse group of different people. But also, when you think about America, Asians also have a lot of diversity within in terms of the types of oppression they face, the like social outcomes that they're able to experience, the privilege that they have. Like it is wild to think of Asians as a monolithic group.
There's so much diversity within this silly little kind of category.
Yes.
But on the other hand, it's like if I'm asked to tick a box, what am I going to do?
That is the box.
Describe me, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm just thinking a lot through my reading and through like the BTS Spark, of meeting other people. I'm thinking a lot about like rethinking and recasting the ways in which I grew up or saw myself in the world. It's honestly very satisfying, to be at this age and to be able to do that.
That is one thing that I was going to ask about that was not on my list of questions that I did not send you ahead of time. But that, do you ever feel like, because sometimes I'm like, I'm 38. What do you mean you're just figuring it out now? Haven't you had all of this time to figure it out? But so I love that you don't feel that you're feeling like, oh, it's so great that I'm doing this now.
Yeah, I mean, just yesterday I was hanging out with a couple of women my age. I'm in my late 40s, and we were talking about staying young, not like in an outward way, but like the feelings way.
Yes.
I always want to feel curious, excited, and basically have youthful energy, which is not about age or number. And the fact that you can keep discovering things about yourself, and also part of that is power. Like, as a woman of my age, I feel more powerful than I ever have in my entire life. Why would you not want that? Aging is amazing.
But it's also, that is so counter to the narrative of how we talk about aging, how we talk about, if we think about ourselves as women in media, and in some case, like, okay, we're not celebrities, but women in the public eye in some ways, like we do public-facing work. Often the narrative around women as we age is that the spaces and our power, the spaces that are open to us and the power that we have accessible to us diminishes. So the idea that it is empowering in like a real meaningful way, not in a like, let's empower the ladies, but like it is actually empowering for us to find out more about where we come from, to learn new things, to maintain our curiosity, to delve deep into the things that interest us. That is awesome.
Yes.
I love that.
Yes, and I also think that power comes from speaking what you truly think and feel. And when I was a younger woman, and especially being on TV, I really every day felt my race and gender precede me into the room. Like I always felt that experience of like, oh, the person I'm about to meet and talk to sees an Asian girl. That's what they see. And then I open my mouth and it's like, there's already been this impression, right? This intersectional kind of impression of who I am that has all these expectations attached. But now I feel like I'm more comfortable just saying what I think and feel.
Yeah.
It probably just comes with practice in life.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like in Korea, you have like life stages, like they're very into age and respect and hierarchy. And I'm an ajumma now, which is like, in French, you would have a mademoiselle and a madame.
Yes.
I'm in my ajumma years.
Yes.
I'm no longer an agashi, which is like a mademoiselle, like a young lady. And there is something so powerful about being an ajumma. Like, I could have my hair in a perm and big, like, ninjango pants, which is the thing that people used to wear. Like, I do not care anymore. Like, there's a freeing sense of, like, I have the power to say and do what I want and what I need. Anyway, so It's all tied up there in how people see you, right?
Yeah.
And being freed from that.
Yeah. I think you should actually wear those pants. Like, I think that is a thing that I want to see. I think you could make them look so cool. They are objectively cool already, but you could make them so cool. Okay, I do want to go a little bit back to the idea of fandom. I'd just like to note for the record that it's so cool that we've been talking about aging and power and the space that we take up in the world. And so much of that comes out of this conversation about BTS. And that leads into I'm fascinated by fandom because I think it tells us so much about what we care about and what we want to be and see. But at the same time, female fans and female fandom in particular is often not taken seriously. And so I'm curious how your past as a music journalist, as a journalism icon, I don't know what camera I'm supposed to look at, a journalism icon for women of color in Canadian media, how your time being on Much shaped your perspective of fandom and how your experience of being a BTS fan has changed it, if it's changed it, what has that evolution been like?
Oh my God, there's so much to say there. But first of all, thank you for saying such kind words about me. And when you say that it's for women of color in Canada, that means the most to me. So thank you.
I'm not, I watched you on TV and I didn't even want to be in broadcast. I watched you on TV though and was like, possibilities opened inside of me that I did not know existed. So sorry. I'm not sorry. I actually did warn you that I would be doing this, and here I am doing it. But I would like to take a moment for you to understand that because I think you emailed me about something completely randomly 5 years ago, and I was like, there's a celebrity in my inbox. What the hell? Truly. So it means a lot that we are now sitting here and I get to ask you all of these questions. I mean, I ask you questions all the time. Let's not joke.
Thank you for saying that because I really feel like the celebrity thing does not apply to me, but I do feel proud of the work that I was trying to do. It was imperfect because I was imperfect, but I was trying to do my best. And the idea that a little Stacey was watching me is very
watching you eyes wide, being like, sorry, we can do this?
I love it. Okay, so the question is about female fandom. And
yes.
So coming to BTS, a boy band, in my 40s has been instructive on confronting my own internalized sexism because first of all, BTS Army is a very diverse group of people. It is not only gender specific, but it is, I think, mostly women identifying people.
Yeah.
But the age range is massive.
Yes.
And geographically, it's all over the world. Linguistically, it's people from all over. 90% of K-pop listeners are outside of Korea. So it's just amazing. Very diverse group. But I had to confront my own ideas of why have I never been a boy band fan before? Was it because I had some weird internalized sexism? And so I thought about that when I was older. And again, it's that freeing feeling of I don't give AF, right?
Yeah.
So I've always felt, if not feminist, so I do identify as feminist, but that was a term I had to embrace for myself at a certain age.
Yeah.
But I think even before I embraced the term for myself, I was always feminist, right? And so I just have to basically self-reflect on, I don't know, what was going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting thing to come to terms with in yourself, to be able to self-reflect and say, well, why was I reacting in this way? I think is useful. It's so useful to understand that. I think all the time about the things I get caught up in, the times where I'm like, that's a weird thing to think, or that reaction is weird.
Yeah.
I'm like, where did that come from? That doesn't really jive with anything that you actually believe.
And I think that's great to question ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we have to. The only way that we actually continue growing and remain actually dedicated to the things that we believe in is to constantly understand that. I did a training in 2020, one of those EDI trainings, and the person said that racism and bias is like the air around us. We're constantly inhaling it. We have to constantly be on guard. And that has really shaped my understanding of the work I'm trying to do, is that you don't learn the lesson once. You have to continue learning the lesson. What has been the most meaningful moment or experience of your BTS fandom?
For sure, making new friends. So real life friends. When I first discovered BTS on my own, alone on YouTube, which is probably the way for everyone. I couldn't talk about them with my own friends. My own friends were not BTS fans. So I had to go out looking for some new friends.
I had to leave those friends behind.
I didn't
and replace them.
I just expanded my friend group. I started DMing people. I just started DMing people.
Love
It's like, I heard you like BTS. I read your story about BTS. Just started having conversations. And then at a certain point, I grouped a bunch of people together because we were going to have like this one-off book club where we read a book that RM, who is one of the members of BTS, that he recommended. And we did do that in my backyard.
Yes.
Yeah, it was fun. Everybody else panned the book, but it was.
It wasn't about the book itself.
Okay, so it absolutely was not about the book, although I was happy that I read it. It was a Magic Shop book. Then what happened was that now we had a group chat because we had tried to organize the logistics of meeting up. And that is going strong. And people are dropping things in it every day, and it's been years. And we've met up for dinner a couple times, and I've made some really great friendships over BTS. I love when I can meet people just slightly outside of my world, but we have a shared interest. I can learn so much from them. Also, I've met other Korean Canadian women who may be a different age from me or whatever, but we have like so many similar. We have a shorthand with each other, and it's been great. Thank you, BTS.
But okay, and also those people who you meet that are slightly outside of your world, they make your world bigger.
Yeah.
They are expanding your world all the time. Like where I think sometimes we are encouraged for our worlds to become smaller as we get older, as we start families, I think we sometimes are encouraged to become more insular. Doing something like this is like, oh, here's this person, we love the same thing, and now they are important to me, and now what's important to them is important to me. Like it's like so much richness in your life.
Yeah, just everyday interactions become richer.
Yeah.
Like I was at a conference, this progressive kind of think tanky conference, and somebody was like organizing it with like in a private message, I heard you like BTS. Like, what? Then we became friends, you know?
Right.
Like, everything is so random, but not. It's an amazing connector.
Yes. Okay, is there anything, I absolutely have 17 more questions that I will ask you at a later date at lunch, but is there anything that we didn't talk about that you want to talk about?
I don't know, I guess I would just wrap up by saying that BTS is so fun for me. It's so fun. And if there's anything we can do in this crazy garbage dumpster fire of a world, I hope people can just find their path to a fun thing. The internet is so fraught, but there are things. And to protect that little bit of fun for yourself, especially if it speaks to something inside that is very childlike, or something that as a child you needed or wanted but didn't get, the internet may have it for you. And so if it does,
The internet
it.
is not always a nice place, but sometimes it can give you what your inner child needs.
Exactly.
Okay, that is the way we wrap up. Thank you so much for being here. This was such a good conversation.
Yeah, thanks, Stacey.
Where can people find you?
I'm kind of on Instagram. I have seasons. Sometimes I'm really on, sometimes I'm resting.
That's fair. That is fair.
So I'm at Hansung, HANNSUNG. Also at Media Girlfriends, which is our production company, at Media Girlfriends. So look us up.
Yeah, definitely. And DM her about BTS.
Oh, yes.
Obviously.
Always welcome.
Obviously. Okay, thank you so much for this conversation. It was so good.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. You know the drill. Like, comment, subscribe. If you'd like more Friday in your life, you can follow @_FridayThings on Instagram, or you can go to www.fridaythings.com/subscribe to sign up for the newsletter. Thank you.
Get it, got it, good. Get it, got it, good. Get it? Get it, got it, good. Get it, got it, good. Get it, got it, good. Get it, got it. I'm talking about ways we can elevate. Stepping up, staring, we escalate. Don't try to separate, we'll get together and celebrate. I can do everything, I just don't hesitate. I can do anything. Allow me to demonstrate. I just can't wait, I just cannot be me. I just can't